conversations on the sustainable island states and sustainability in general. Today, these conversations will continue, and I hope that they will be as exciting, informational, and inspirational as they have been for the past 2 days. We'll begin this morning with a video from our platinum sponsor, the Republic, from the Republic. Okay? We will go straight into, oh, wait, okay. So we will have a video from the platinum sponsor from the Republic of China on Taiwan.
I appreciate very much about the invitation by the Prime Minister Dr. Zhu and for participate the Global Sustainable Island Summit. Last year, we have an opportunity to have a dinner together talking about sustainable issues. And this time, I cannot personally participate on the meeting, but I like to use this video to congratulate on this event. And on behalf of Taiwan citizens, I really also like to appreciate your support on Taiwan, have opportunity to participate to many of the international organizations like WHO, UNFCCC, and ICAO or Interpol. Okay, so this is very important to Taiwan. Thank you so much. And today I like to share some of the personal experience on the technology and also the future climate change technology. And I founded the ASA in 1976, involved in the chip and also the computer, the opportunity. In the 1989, I proposed to Taiwan have a vision about high-tech island and the global citizen. Means we like to create value in the high-tech area, and then we can like to contribute, treat ourselves as a local corporate citizen to all over the world. That is the effort I do for Taiwan and Asia, and I have an opportunity to retire at 60 by 2004. And today I consider the zero emission is important for sustainable for the earth. So currently I funded 2 projects. One is the logistic EV, the cruise tank, and also another one is called the polymer zero emission ship. We position as a carless car company and a shipless ship company. Means we design the car, design the ship, and we build an overall system using the supply chain most from the Taiwan. Of course, we also outsourcing globally, but we try to share all of this experience to become a local manufacturer on logistic EV and the zero emission ship. That is I call is new business approach. We like to, based on the global vertical integration, new paradigm shift approach to help all the interest nation. We can work together to help them to develop their local industry, or for the local requirement, including the region. This is our huge business approach. This is also work with our Taiwan new approach called the prosperity of the project. Try to help the local industry to develop their local economic or the industry. This is important. So I hope the Global Sustainable Island Summit this year came very successful, and I hope all the participants, they can share a lot of information together and get the most great result. Thank you so much. Thank you.
We will go straight into the first panel for the third day of GSIS. This panel will be moderated by Mr. Josiah Burkett, Senior GIS Officer in the Department of Physical Planning for the Government of St. Kitts and Nevis. Please allow me to welcome Mr. Burkett to the stage, and he will introduce his panel.
Good morning, everyone. And again, welcome and thank you for participating in this amazing summit. I hope it has been very beneficial to many of you. I hope those who are visiting, it's been a great experience here in St. Kitts, whether it's your first time and you are able to soak in our culture and you've learned so much from all these presentations and engagements. So this morning we have a really good panel. We're going to be discussing building a better tomorrow, innovation as a tool to design sustainable futures. I'm your moderator, Josiah Burkett, and I'd like to welcome Mr. Dexter Fasal, President of the St. Kitts and Nevis Institute of Architects. Mr. Fasal is a Lucian who resides here in St. Kitts. He's the Director of All Architects Incorporated. We also have Dr. Chenan Lin, Senior Engineer with ITRI, the Industrial Technology Research Institute, and is one of the world's leading technology R&D institutions aiming to innovate a better future for society. ITRI has played a vital role in transforming Taiwan's industries from labor-intensive to technology-oriented, and various partnerships here with the Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis. We have Ms. Pamela Toribio, Climate Change Mitigation Analyst, Government of the Dominican Republic. She has a master's in design engineering with sustainability, technical transparency expert reviewer, policymaker, promoter. And finally, we have Mr. Shezon Tuckett, Director of the Department of Lands and Surveys here in the Ministry of Sustainable Development with the Government of St. Kitts and Nevis. Mr. Tuckett has a bachelor's in geomatics, a master's in GIS that he's currently finishing, and he's one of our young leading emerging leaders here in St. Kitts and Nevis. So I welcome you guys to the stage, and we look forward to a very fruitful discussion. Can you give a warm round of applause for our presenter? So for this session, we want to explore innovation approaches to building resilience through sustainable architecture, urban planning, and settlement design. Our experts will discuss how eco-friendly construction, green technologies, and community-focused planning can create durable, sustainable environments that thrive in the face of climate challenges. So I guess we can start the conversation. Let's see this one. Okay, testing. Perfect. So I guess, Mr. Fasal, do you have your slides ready?
Hi, good morning.
Yes.
I'm honored to be here today to making this appearance on behalf of the SKNIA. We are indeed happy to be able to contribute to such a very important issue, such as sustainability. Yeah? Next slide, please. Okay. So we as architects, we are considered to be the stewards of the built and the natural environment, considering the fact that we do require land, obviously, for us to build and for us to sort of cohabitate. So the architect does have a very significant role as it relates to the quest for sustainability. Oh, thank you very much. All right. Okay, this one. Okay, there we go. Okay, so with architect's vision, again, response. The architect's response has to respond to and is affected by, obviously, climate, the local culture, land, and of course, economy. We do know that financing it's very important. It really is sometimes the deal breaker whether or not our clients, would choose one option versus another. So again, in terms of approach, from the architect standpoint, any single intervention, whether it be architectural or urban, has to respond. It has to be rooted in its local context. It has to respond to our local context, our local challenges, but of course it has to be globally informed. We look globally for the influence of science, technology, and of course innovation. So, taking a look at government policy, we consider government policy to be basically the driving force behind any sustainable effort, right? We look at sustainability, policy from the perspective of strengthening existing sustainable, policies that we have to basically deal with issues of sustainability in a more holistic manner. Whether it be through the incentivization of materials and, of course, practices. We look at encouraging natural first site planning. So, for example, we do have quite a bit of unoccupied lots. Sometimes persons would purchase lots with the intention of developing the lots at some point in the future. But usually the development is delayed. How can we leverage those open lots and make better use of them? We also look at the whole idea of acknowledging the importance of professional standards. We do understand that the architects, engineers, planners do have a very important role to play in the drive towards sustainability. Hence, it is paramount, it is important that we advocate for policies where we have registration acts that basically governs how the practice of architecture and engineering is basically practiced. The benefit here, most professional organizations basically stipulate the whole idea of CPDs, continued professional development. That way, architects and other practitioners would be up to date with the latest trends, basically, throughout the world. So we look at a few pillars, fundamental pillars to be considered, basically, as we look towards a more sustainable future. Sustainable materials. How do we see the whole idea of sustainable materials? Are they accessible? Are they very economical? Of course, the local science. We do have to look at our context. How vulnerable are we? Are we? Can we sort of leverage some of the positives? Can we make use of the solar energy, right? And if we take a look at nature and architecture, there is this trend, I should say, or it's an understanding that what we consider to be biophilic design, the connection between architecture and nature, is very, very important. And this does not only resonate with the whole idea of the sustainable environment, but it's also important for the psychological well-being as well. So this is it's a bit of a twist, but there's also a different, like I said, dimension to what we consider to be sustainability. And of course, we look at practical land use. Not just practical land use, but we also need to consider conserving the lands that we use as well. What do we have in place and how we can best manage our resources? Yeah? So we're going to take a look at a few case studies. First of all, here we have Mauritius, government-led green building code for tropical contexts. There is one of the most significant aspects of this particular case study is the ability to have sort of a very robust government policy that basically deals with the issues of incentivizing individuals. There's also an approach where there is emphasis on gold standard projects. There are tangible projects that sets the bar for what is considered to be a more sustainable approach to development. We also have Singapore here. We have the treehouse. So this is a very good example of the idea of leveraging and sort of finding a solution to urban density. Right here in St. Kitts and Nevis, we do have a situation where we have a very dense, small and dense city central. I am aware that there are plans afoot to sort of review the codes to take into consideration high-rise buildings. Yeah, I think as we look to sort of reform those codes, it would be a very great idea to take into consideration. It should be futuristic, right? It should take into consideration that architects at some point would want to sort of leverage these opportunities and of course create new design solutions. Yeah, this case study here out of Costa Rica, the primary takeaway here is the emphasis on the control of the urban sprawl, making sure that development respects and there is some form of a balance between what we consider to be the built environment and the natural environment. Closer to home here in Trinidad and Tobago, we have what is considered to be Savannah East. This particular commercial office building really embodies sustainability from its foundation all the way to its green rooftops. Yes, and here we do have a few international utterances from the International Union of Architects, recognizing architects as one of the key players basically in the fight against sustainable designs. Yeah, the fight towards sustainable designs through climate resilient designs with the goal naturally to sort of create and prioritize carbon neutral buildings for a sustainable future. Yeah. Path forward, St. Kitts and Nevis. I think it is critical that we take a look at the policies that we have and how we could reinforce them. I am aware that we do have documents out there, like the Quebec document, which takes a look at energy conservation and energy efficiency. While it is not law, while it is an optional document, I think there is a perfect opportunity for us to take a look at how our codes can basically sort of incorporate some of the yes. Encourage garden first permitting for residential sites. I think I would have mentioned that earlier. Again, what can we do to sort of use and take advantage of those open lots? Not just for the benefit of the owners of the property, but at a large scale, on the global scale, on the national scale, right? Should we look for an expansion of edible gardens, or should we use our backyards as repositories for solar energy that can, transfer back into the national grid? Also look at establishing green innovation zones. So can we consider a Silicon Valley for sustainability, where we have an area that is earmarked specifically for green initiatives, business models, anything at all that surrounds the whole issue of sustainability? Yeah. Collaboration with regional architects and researchers, very, very important. I think we do have a pool of individuals in the Caribbean who are LEED certified. I think there is an opportunity, not that we don't have collaboration, but I do think that there is an opportunity for us to sort of foster greater collaboration around professionals in the region. And again, Pathways and Kitts and Nevis, as mentioned earlier, take a look at the our guidelines as it relates to our codes and how they could be strengthened. Taking a look again at the utilization of our open lots, green innovation zones, collaboration, and of course, more importantly, we let nature inform our designs. And not the other route. Yeah. So in closing, just a few questions, just to stimulate a bit of discourse as we proceed with the presentation. Question: do we have any significant recycling plans in the Caribbean? As we focus heavily on creating sustainable developments, right? Infrastructure. How sustainable is that infrastructure? Can we consider recycling those used tires, right? So we could actually use the used tires as an admixture to the asphalt that we use. So these infrastructures that take us to those sustainable cities and developments become sustainable themselves, right? Have we developed construction recycling policies? As we know, construction contributes to between 30 and 40% of the I would say the general waste that finds itself at the landfills. Do we have policy that sort of encourages individuals to recycle, to find innovative uses for the steel and in general the byproducts of the construction process? And this is a call to us as practitioners, myself included. How much do we leverage BIM software or any other software that allows us to sort of design and track the data that we have, that we possess as a result of our designs? And finally, very general question, right? What policies have we enacted for sustainable materials and, of course, sustainable materials products and how should I put it? Systems, whether it be systems products. Do we have anything specifically that answers the needs and the questions to ourselves as architects, engineers, to make the job a bit easier? And I thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Fassan. And I think this is a perfect segue to yourself, Dr. Lin. There is the conversation about, governance or a resilient future. So, and I know ITRI is part of a policy think tank here in St. Kitts. So, Dr. Lin, can you speak to us? How do you see us aligning innovation with governance? Yes. Perfect.
Many thanks, thank you, moderator. Distinguished guests, also, first of all, I want to thank about St. Kitts and the Nevis government and their own hospitality to organize this meaningful summit. Since I come from the island country from far, far away, in Taiwan, I'm very impressive that so many people still hanging in the conference room, especially in the third day in this meeting, rather than just stay in a hotel's big swimming pool. All right. Here's the topic I'm talking to share with you regarding to aligning the innovation and the governance for a resilient future. Just in this April, our President Lai just announced that Taiwan is going to be a net zero and a resilient homeland. But it's not just a slogan, but I may just show you how Taiwan government to achieve this kind of our policy goal. You can just see that how Taiwan's greenhouse gas emission inventory diagram in this slide. We are very happy that to achieve our sustainable goal, we have achieved the three main goals. The first of all, we just in that 2 days ago, we just declared that in Taiwan, because we set up 2005 as our emission level. We complete our greenhouse gas emission inventory report that our 2023 greenhouse gas emission are actually reduced around 5% compared to the 2005 level. It's the most important way to achieve our regulatory emission goal in 2025. The second, when Taiwan just declared that we will be nuclear-free homeland in 2005, after 20 years effort, just in 2 weeks ago, Taiwan officially to shut down the last all nuclear reactors. That's the truth. Although some kind of advanced small modular nuclear reactors still some option on the table, but actually we finally completed our goal to as some nuclear-free homeland. Third, in Taiwan Strait, right now we already have set up more than 400 set up offshore wind turbines. In coming years, we are going to establish more than thousands of offshore wind turbines. It's kind of ambition would be Taiwan's efforts to the world. Although Taiwan is not a signatory UNFCCC the parties, Taiwan is going to have a NDC 3.0 commitment to the 2035. Especially, you can see in the diagram that Taiwan we already enhanced our emission goal to the 2030. Especially at the first stage, we to 20% cut compared to 2005 level. Right now, in the last December, we declared that we are going to have cut 26 to 30% off compared to 2005 level. It's more ambitious that Taiwan, we're going to have cut about 36 to even maybe at the most will be 40% cut compared to the 2005 level in 2035. Well, we made it ambitious. How we can to achieve that this kind of goal? So we going to introduce the carbon pricing the policy in Taiwan. We have introduced a dual track carbon policy track in Taiwan. In next year, we are going to collect our carbon levy system. We call it carbon fee. Meanwhile, next year, we're going to have the pilot phase about the Taiwan emission trading system for introduce the cap and trade for our main emitters. Also, Taiwan is going to cooperate with our colleagues and allied countries to join the Article 6 the Paris Agreement to have ensure that the international cooperation will be avoid the double counting, but solid and follow the international rules. But how to achieve that? Most countries already declared 2050 will be net zero emission. But the question is how to achieve that. Our Japanese colleagues, they say we do that will be green transformation. But today, I find a common goal, a common words to all the color-being friends. We call that with green growth. Because all the island countries have a different situation. They have a different developing stage. Most countries more concerned about adaptation, they're concerned about loss and damage. But in Taiwan, we are export-oriented economy. So the question in Taiwan will be how to reduce our carbon emission fastly. So in 2022, we introduced our 12 key strategy for net zero emission, especially around a strategy will be focused on new technology such as solar and wind power, hydrogen, and advanced new energy technology and energy storage, blah, 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 something like that. But meanwhile, we found out how to make all the emitters to join with the government. The government cannot stand alone. We have to introduce the private sector to join with the government to achieve the common goal. So in our legally binding, the government cooperate with the private sector. we introduced about sectoral mitigation master plan this year. We introduced about energy sector, commerce and building sector, transportation sector, manufacturing sector. We ask the department, the ministry to cooperate with our private sectors. We have some most important 4 main pillars. The first of all is the technology innovation. The second would be when people talking about green finance, but for this kind of well-developed country, we have first to discuss about the transition finance, then to continue to be fully green finance. Although we also introduce about to price all the carbon emissions for those main emitters, especially for energy sector and the manufacturing sector. Of course, the most important, we have to cooperate with all the international colleagues. So, ITRI is the biggest research institute in Taiwan. We have several international branch office in Tokyo, in California, in Germany. We have more than 6,000 employees. We have different laboratories, so we focus on different technology sectors, especially for the green energy. We focus on different kind of advanced technology, especially for green power, CCUS, circular economy, and low carbon manufacturing, even from the building sector and the low carbon mobility. We have different specialties to work on this kind of new technology. But the question is, how to make more impact? As I mentioned in the previous slide, each island country will be faced on different challenge locally, right? In Caribbean area, we are more focused on adaptation. We are focused on how to reduce our loss and damage. But in Taiwan, we have a different challenge, especially for all the energy supply and energy demand, how to manage about manufacturing. We have even to, when we apply for the CCUS, we have to more concern about our environmental issues. We are export-oriented country, so we are more concerned about the C-band issues. We are also concerned about what kind of energy policy can make all the main emitters can adapt to this. So
3 more minutes, Dr. Lin.
All right. So, I'm sorry about it because after my delivered speech, I have to catch my flight. So I do my best to explain more details. So when we innovate this kind of new technology, we have some different situation because when we're talking about a new technology, we always consider about the cost. In the UNEP report, they consider they have some threshold that what kind of technology can be applied lower than 200 US per ton. So cheaper technology can be applied for the investment incentive to all the different stakeholders. Others, some expensive technology can be accelerated, can be promoted from the carbon market to accelerate deployment. So here's my summary. I don't think that net zero emission is not just an empty slogan, but it requires more bold innovation and effective governance. In Taiwan, we have a more effective legally binding to ask for all the ministry, all the main emitters to join with the government to cut their emissions. So have to work together. Of course, Taiwan, ITRI is the most important technology incubator in Taiwan. So we are ready to cooperate with all the partners globally. Together, we go beyond technology, innovating as resilient and such benefits. Thank you for your attention. Thank you all. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Lin. Thank you very much. So we quickly move on to our next panelist, Ms. Cerebo. And you wanted to speak specifically to challenges because we know, yes, we can have the technology, yes, we can have the theory, but when we apply this to the real world, there are challenges in designing sustainable infrastructure. So can you dive a little deeper in that for us?
Thank you so much. Good morning, everyone. I'm very happy today to be sharing with you some of the lessons learned but also some good practices. And I would like to recall the importance of not underestimating the design of sustainable buildings and resilient buildings. And as you may know, in the Dominican Republic last month, we had the loss of 233 people in a nightclub. And we're still doing like all the technical assessment to realize what will happen actually. But that's a really bad case of planning infrastructure. So parting from that aspect, consider there is a huge cost when it comes to designing sustainable infrastructure. And apart from the government perspective, just talking now about what I've been studying, which is design engineering with sustainability, I would like to think and put in place today that it's not the same to design sustainable infrastructure in like developed countries than in cities. Small island developing states has a lot of particularities that each country will take into consideration when it comes to designing this infrastructure. For example, in the Dominican Republic, we have more than 10 million of people, and probably it's not the case for St. Kitts. We have more than 2 million just concentrated on the capital. We have issues in terms of where jobs are located. But apart from that, we all shared some considerations and aspects that I would like to talk to you today. And the first of all is vulnerabilities. We have a lot of high exposure to climate hazards. We have to consider floods, we have to consider droughts, we have to consider hurricanes. And this is something that probably we thought of in the moment when we started to see, okay, we have a season for hurricane now, and we have to take measurements. But due to climate change, this is not something we can prevent. There are a lot of things that we can actually not prevent. And that's when we have to consider and think about what are we doing when it comes to designing and planning this infrastructure. In that sense, I would like to mention that the Dominican Republic has been cooperating with the CDRI. There's a coalition for this disaster risk infrastructure, and the government of India, and could be an example for other countries as well. And we have been working with them with 3 projects. And considering the issue that I mentioned before and the terrible situation that we faced, we start doing not only thinking about building new infrastructure, we start been assessing the infrastructure that we already have. Because that's something we can start doing. We can start looking for institutions or bridges or offices or buildings in general that need technical assessment in terms of vulnerabilities and to see what we can do about it before it's very late. We have been also cooperating with them in terms of early warning systems because that's something that islands need to consider. We also been working with other regional islands like Cuba and Haiti in terms of territorial infrastructure as well. And this could be just a knowledge shared that you can take into account. Another aspect the cities needs to consider is the limited land availability. We have risk zoning, I think it was mentioned before. Not all the space we can use it. There are spaces that people cannot live there. We also have to consider the biodiversity, how we're gonna do a balance between how many buildings we're gonna build versus the biodiversity, carbon storage that we would like to maintain according to the space that we have. Another aspect is the resource constraints. We don't have all the materials probably to build. We need to import them probably. But we also have like there are some materials that are from the countries that could be used that probably we are not thinking of using them, like some caoba, for example, bamboo or other type of material that is sustainable. And if it comes from your own country, it is more resilient than any other material that you probably bring to your homeland. Another aspect is the dependence on imported technologies. That's the same thing with materials. We need a lot of transfer technologies from other countries. We also lack of regulatory and institutional frameworks. In the Dominican Republic, we already have a law for land use planning, but still there are a lot of, let's say, points of improvement in terms of applying these regulations. So that's something that we have to consider as well. Capacity building, it's very important. I think it was mentioned also here, how we can collaborate between islands. There are already people that are certified, institutions. In our country, we have been using LEED as word certification, but also another one that it's named EDGE. And we're trying to rebuild what is already built in terms of creating resilient infrastructure. And we're thinking about this balance between how we can provide sustainable places for people and where does these people live actually. And that lead me to the point of infrastructure interdependence, because we need to think about connectivity. We need to think about where does the people work, where do they live, where, if they have kids, where, if they go to school, where. In our country, we are facing this issue where, for example, in the capital, you work an hour or 2 hours far from where you live, and that's a thing, and that's a huge thing. And like, just by planning these things, we can cut a lot of emissions. Sometimes we just need to think about how can we build surrounding the places that are with these economical activities, or if there's options, for example, to do remote work, that's another way of improving. And also, I would like to talk about the social and cultural considerations. We need community involvement, community engage. I had the opportunity to work in Sustrans a time ago in UK, and something that I believe is a good practice that we can actually share is the fact that when people are going to build something, they are involved in the community and they are looking ahead into the necessity of the community. Not just, I'm going to build this because this will be helpful in the future, but more like, okay, what are the conditions and the needs of the local communities in this place? What do they actually are seeking for, instead of let's just build this here and that's it. And I would like to finish by saying that recently, last year, the country created a sustainable building design guide for the Dominican Republic. This could also be like a good practice to share, and could be an example of how can you create manuals or standards that could be particularly to your own country's needs. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Pamela. And you've highlighted well how the need for information and looking at local context is really relevant into how do we overcome these challenges, not just looking at what the First Will is doing. And this is segueing into Mr. Tuckett's presentation, which is going to be on geographic information systems. I know I'm passionate about GIS heavily, so we understand the power of GIS and how it can help with planning sustainable settlements. But in particular, you mentioned monitoring and even looking at existing infrastructure, and GIS definitely has the power to do that. So, Mr. Tuckett, can you kind of explain to us, you know, how are you using GIS here in St. Kitts and Nevis? Yeah, you can. How are you using GIS here in St. Kitts and Nevis, both to assess infrastructure and help us plan more sustainable settlements?
Hi, good morning, everybody. My name is Shazan Tuckett. I'm the acting director at the Department of Lands and Surveys within the Ministry of Sustainable Development, here in St. Kitts. I'm just here to share very briefly on how geographic information systems can be used to better and design more sustainable settlements in island states such as ours. Sustainability begins with knowing where we stand, and GS gives us the ground to stand on. Simply, this means that as we're moving towards sustainable development, one of the things that we really have to consider is what does sustainability mean and how do we actually achieve these goals? And when we're planning sustainably towards sustainable settlements, we have to ask some questions. What exists? Who exists? Where do these people and events exist? How do they interact? How do they intersect? And we have to give considerations to these things, and JS allows us to answer those questions. In my personal experience, oftentimes we've considered GIS to purely be a mapping tool, when in this current context, it really is a decision-making tool that helps us to build smarter, safer, and more resilient communities. Why does settlement design in SIS need GIS? In small island states, we face very unique pressures. We have limited land, growing housing demand, and increasing exposure to climate-related hazards. Urban sprawl without planning leads to infrastructure strain, environmental damage, and social inequity. GIS allows us to plan with people at the center, providing data-driven insights to guide livable, inclusive, and strategic settlement design. That said, in St. Kitts, we try to implement to the best of our ability some very key GIS processes. Land suitability analysis, it really helps us to determine where we should build. Separately, the hazard and risking mapping, it shows us where we shouldn't. We also use GIS for infrastructure mapping, environmental assessments, 3D terrain modeling, and urban growth simulation. Together, these tools enable evidence-based decisions that balance human needs with environmental realities. A very brief example. In St. Kitts, we often use weighted overlay and multi-criteria decision analysis to assess land suitability. Simply, we combine some data layers, and please, I just want to petition on our behalf and on the behalf of our data professionals about how important data is in this current moment, in this current environment. It is very important for us to be able to make conclusive and well-informed decisions, and I want to encourage all of us to continue to collect important and accurate information. We combine layers like slope, soil type, elevation, and zoning regulations to pinpoint ideal development zones. We avoid areas prone to erosion or flooding. This helps us to plan settlements that are both viable and safe. Another vital application is hazard and risk mapping. We integrate data from LiDAR and digital elevation models to identify flood zones, storm surge risks, and landslide-prone areas. By laying this with climate projections, we can plan with the future in mind, ensuring communities are not just built for today, but resilient for tomorrow. In summary, GIS empowers sustainable island states to plan settlements that are resilient, strategic, and sustainable. For small island states, this is not optional, it is essential. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Tuckett. So we want to start a discussion, and one of the things that stood out to me, and it's something that we've been paying attention to even with the use of GIS, is resource management, because we want to build sustainable communities, sustainable infrastructure. But here, as Mr. Toribio mentioned, we have to look at our resources locally. And a lot of times we find ourselves importing. So between Mr. Fasal, Mr. Toribio, have you seen examples where, or do you believe there should be some sort of regional collaboration in terms of using natural resources? Because here in St. Kitts, we have a finite resource, whether it's in materials to be used for construction and infrastructure. And then when you're looking at importing, then we're seeing the price of construction increasing. So persons then want to take shortcuts, and that impacts how sustainable our infrastructure is. So are there examples or anything you'd like to speak to Mr. Fasal and Mr. Toribio as it relates to how can we collaborate regionally in terms of using sustainable materials or resources that balances, because we don't want 1,000 quarries on our islands, etc., but we want to be able to make cost-effective infrastructure?
Right. Hello? Great question, Mr. Tuckett. I do believe the appetite is really there for collaboration between professionals, specifically across the region. There are a few barriers, however. I think I mentioned previously in my presentation. The financing usually is one of the most significant factors that really determines whether a client, and I use the term client in this context, it could be residential, commercial, or governmental. It usually is the driving force behind the solutions that are ultimately going to be accepted, right? But if we take a look at the uniqueness of every single island state, or I should say our sister Caribbean islands, right? We do have some islands that are a little more resource rich than others. I think we need to take a closer look at how, at least from a material standpoint, we can foster greater sort of trade arrangements, you know, with among states. That way, ultimately, the cost of construction is going to be lower, and the rate of buy-in consequently is going to be higher. So I think if we begin to look at cost, look at how we can sort of you know, minimize costs, I think public uptake would be enhanced. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Fassan. And
Okay, so I agree with the fact that we can do corporations and supply chain will reduce its cost, but also I'm thinking about the resilience as well. One of the things we have been doing in research is the fact that applies not only for construction, that applies for agriculture. When you have a species that are native, like from the country, they resist to disasters in a way better than other materials that you bring from other countries, because they were raised there. So that's a good thing to consider. And I believe, yes, there could be possible cooperations between the islands, because we are very close to each other. We can actually think about how can we create like regional efforts to reduce the cost, but also to think about how can we build this resilience. We are thinking about how can we actually reduce vulnerabilities as well.
thank you very much. And Mr. Tuckett, you showed us some different examples of what we're doing here in St. Kitts and Nevis with GIS. But as it relates to architects, have you seen that collaboration yet heavily being used with GIS analysis to inform design? And if so, can you give us an example? If not, what would you say to those who are, you know, in that space?
Well, that's a really good question. What I would say is that I know in architecture, an integral part of any design is understanding what is happening on site. So there's the need for the site analysis. And what GIS is able to do, it's able to inform your site analysis. Whether it is a matter of building orientation for passive solar gain, whether it's a matter of natural ventilation or orienting the building for natural lighting, the GIS allows you to do that assessment so that you can know exactly where the sun is at this point in time, where the winds are coming from, how it impacts the vegetation, how it impacts the land in various ways. And we're able to use GIS as a tool to inform all of these things. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Tuckett.
Allow me just one.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah, just to piggyback on what you mentioned, I think one of the most important things as well is to make the information accessible. I'm not sure as it currently stands how accessible is that information, and I'm not referring to the average survey document or a topographical document, but more in-depth information as it relates to our current context. That does inform the design. Yeah.
Yeah, and data sharing is critical, especially with GIS. And it's something we're definitely looking at here in St. Kitts and Nevis, and I'm sure those other experts in the room regionally is trying to see how can we get more GIS data shared with other professionals, especially engineers, architects, etc., and bring our fields closer. But I also want to engage the audience. Now we have 10 minutes, and any questions or you would have for our panelists. We have one person here. I don't know if there's some assistance in the room to get a mic. And since we have a time crunch, you can do keep the questions tight, because I definitely would like to get as many as possible, and we can have our panelists answer them quickly.
Good morning. Ruth Spencer from Antigua and Barbuda. Antigua is part of the OECS region, and improved building designs have been made and shared with us. But what I realized, some of the requirements for climate resilient housing includes the construction of a cistern but many of the low-income people cannot afford this. So when they go to the bank and, you know, their loan structure is being worked out, the disposable income cannot meet the requirement to include a cistern. So we have to look for alternatives. So what we have done in Antigua, in one community, the Seventh-day Adventist Church has a large plot of land, and we constructed a community cistern, and all the technical inputs, the drawings, the planning permissions were actually done by technical people in that church. So we have to ensure all these building codes and criteria fits into the local system, because if you have it and the people are not able to, you know, to reach these criteria, what's going to happen? They're going to be left out. They're going to be, you know, suffering, because when you don't have water, it's health and sanitation crisis. And we have been experiencing some of this. So we have to, in our thinking, even though they can't meet it, we have to look at alternatives of how local people can also be accommodated in the process. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We have another question by the same table, so you can just, and that's important. Again, we're hearing financing or community, you know, collaboration. Next question.
Hi, morning everyone, Valerie Grant. I wanted to just kind of piggyback on the GIS question naturally. So Josiah, you have spoken to the whole matter of access and asked about collaboration with various departments and agencies. And so I wanted to find out from the director what mechanisms are in place to facilitate that kind of sharing and collaboration and access to the information to be able to do all the things that you have pointed out that GIS can do in terms of benefiting the community.
Mr. Tucker.
Right. So currently, there are policies that are being put in place, at least locally, for us to be able to establish data sharing agreements. Well, specifically the GIS section at the Department of Physical Planning, what they provide is assistance for all of the different agencies and stakeholders within the Federation. So while we collect data from the different agencies and while the data is managed and used by us, it belongs to the government. And because we understand that we are willing to share with anybody who requests it, private stakeholders have to obviously pay money. However, any of the stakeholders within the government system, it is free for them to access at any point in time.
Yeah, and to add to that, this is being done through the establishment of an NSDI. We have the framework coming from the UNGGIM, so that's what the GIS section is using to build out a national GIS program that looks at policy as a pillar, and then data sharing and the needs, because the capacity isn't really there in all departments. So we try to be that foundation for them until we can get to a point where every department at least has a GIS technician and the capacity, whether it's the resources to handle that. There was another question on this. Oh, someone's right here. Yeah, so here, and then there's one person there. We have about 5 minutes, so we can probably take two.
Hi, good morning, everyone. Angela Burnett, representing the Virgin Islands. This goes to anybody on the panel. I'm just thinking that, well, at least in my view, there's a lot of untapped potential for architects and engineering associations across the Caribbean to really contribute to the sustainable development space, in particular by helping to better educate the general public. I think for the most part, the average home builder is really sort of going into constructing a home without the adequate knowledge and information to really build in a sustainable fashion. And they depend on sometimes draftsmen, because for most people that's the more affordable route to design a home, and you don't necessarily always get all of the right considerations. And I think most importantly, separate and apart from the structure itself, things tend to go wrong at the level of just the site planning. So we tend to have a situation where people are designing a home without any consideration for the topography, the terrain, the particular disaster risk for the site, etc. And you have the client depending on the draftsperson to do this design, and they just accept whatever design is given to them once it has a number of bedrooms and bathrooms, etc., that they want to have in the home. As a personal example, I went to an architect, got my home design, and the design came back with probably more money in retaining walls than the actual structure that I was building. Now, thankfully, as a trained planner, I was able to say to my architect, no, we're not doing that. We're going back to the drawing board. There's no reason that my site should require any retaining walls. And he came back with a design that had no retaining walls. But not everybody is coming from that informed position. So one of the things I think could be a valuable contribution is the development of sort of sustainable building models for hillside development in particular, with a focus on getting things right at the level of the site planning, at the level of fitting the home to the land and not the other way around, understanding, foundation cuts and these things, and packaging information in a way that the public can really appreciate. I saw a good example of that happening in St. Lucia, where the Architects Association worked on developing a video to help people understand the features that make a house roof resilient to hurricane impact. But you don't see a whole lot of that happening. So I just wanted to get your thoughts on how you think associations across the Caribbean can become more proactive in packaging and sharing information to better equip the public to build more sustainably.
All right, can I have a go at it? Question?
You can go ahead. I know you want to.
Very, very interesting question, perspective. Obviously, you're coming from a position of someone who's well informed as a planner. The issue of sensitization is always, it's multifaceted. One of the things that we have considered as an institute here, I happen to be the president of the local the charter here, right? One of the approaches I think we've been looking at is the whole idea of targeting the younger generation. So, for example, a heavy focus on interacting with the students who are studying architectural technology at the local college to introduce the whole idea of sustainable design. I think if the younger generation really understands what's at stake, understands what the best practices are, that information will eventually be transferred into the household. And eventually we're gonna have, we would have created a greater culture of understanding and appreciation of what sustainability really means to us. So that, to answer your question, is just one of the many ways I think we can sort of break the ice. Thank you.
Mr. Rivia, you have to respond.
Yeah, just to add, through education, it's, I believe, a powerful tool. And from the government perspective, what we are trying to do for National Council of Climate Change is we are trying to do sensitization and awareness from local communities of, for example, we have the issue of people trying to live nearby the sea, and we have sea level measurements. So we tell them the reason why they get benefited when they do the right thing. But sometimes it's hard, I have to say, sometimes people do not get it. But as he mentioned, younger generation actually start to understand these issues because they are living them. And from that perspective, university are starting to incorporate, like, let's say, courses or specific technical diplomats and diplomacy courses, or even masters, which was not a thing in our country. I had to do my master's degree abroad because there was not that opportunity. Now we're trying this knowledge, bringing it back to our country, and we establish it locally, so more people have access to that. And you can start seeing the change. You can start seeing that the younger generation, a part of that younger generation, is looking ahead what we can do. We already have the knowledge, and trying to promote this between the local communities as well. Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much. We have two questions. What I'll ask is, can you just give us the two questions brief? So then let's try to answer both because we have 4 more minutes. So can you proceed with your question?
Yeah, I'm from Haiti. We are more than 12 million with less land than Dominican Republic. I was smiling when I heard saying that the DR has 10 million. I just want to do a short observation, okay, to draw to the attention to architects to mainstream other aspects, not only climate, when speaking about construction in the Caribbean. In Haiti, for instance, when we are thinking about vulnerability, this is a mosaic of vulnerability that involve climate, that involve also geological aspect, dealing with earthquake. So architects do not, we should go over the climate vulnerability in terms of construction. And what we need, I think, it's to reinforce institutional mechanisms for integrated policy development. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that. And next person. Yes.
Thank you all, and apologies as I came in late to the session, so this may have been covered earlier. I'm the son of two architects in Bermuda and work in the insurance and reinsurance industry there. And I wanted to ask the panel and the rest of the room, how much are we all paying for insurance? And is it too much? How much consideration is being taken across the Caribbean right now with respect to our built environment and the quality of our roofs? That is one of the most crucial pricing mechanisms in insurance pricing across the Caribbean, the weight of our roofs and the disaster risk mechanism of resultant windstorm and hurricane. Why are we not considering and discussing the operational cost of maintaining risk resilience with respect to the operational cost of our buildings? And I wondered if there would be willingness again to share experience, as this is what we do in Bermuda, but don't share nearly enough as we should, and would like very much more to share further experience and collaborate further with our sister and brother island nations.
Okay, thank you very much. We do have 1 minute. I can chime in quickly, persons on the panel, before we wrap up. But I would say data. At this stage, if we understand using data, what is happening, what is impacting the pricing, we can then look at innovative ways to bring that cost down, or even do cost sharing in some regards, especially in communities. Panelists, anything you want to add before we have that? Okay, so thank you guys. I think this session was really good and informative. We did not get to go to the depths that we would love to, but you know, I think there's a lot of takeaways from this session as it relates to infrastructure. I want to hand over to our host. Do you want to wrap us up as we go over? And thank you to our panelists. We're a big round of applause.
Thank you so much. We can certainly agree that Day 3 has started with a high level of engagement as we have explored from innovation to impact, sustainable infrastructure, sustainable design, sustainable building, and a focus on sustainability in general. So let's have a second round of applause for our opening panel this morning. We will have a 10-minute break. So I'm hoping to see you back at 10:40. It's now 10:30. We'll have a 10-minute break on the outside, and we'll start promptly after. The panelists, you are invited to leave the stage, and thank you once more.
Board.
Let me just announce the side event and then I'll be back.
Okay, I wanted to ask about my pen. Is it the next one?
Announce the side event. Sorry about that. Okay, just letting you all know that we have our final side event starting in the St. Vincent room right now. This will be on the role of cultural heritage for sustainable development in SIDS and island territories.
Just an announcement that we are wrapping up the break and we're about to start the second panel for this morning. So I'm asking persons to return to your seat as we're about to resume this morning's activities.